Another late season collapse by the Indianapolis Colts has brought the future of their head coach and quarterback into question. Should Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson be back in 2025? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host of the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, Drake Wally. Guys, unfortunately, we are not live tonight. Drake had something come up, but hey, just like how I have something come up, usually a lot more than Drake does. We're recording a little bit earlier for you guys. We still wanted to get an episode out because we all know you want to talk about Colts football. Because Drake, let's be honest, the future of this franchise is just completely up in the air, and I think it's probably going to be up in the air for some time. And today we got to talk about the quarterback and the head coach. Especially with everything that's happened over the past couple of weeks, the late season collapse, but then everything that's transpired with the miscommunications to the public about what the soreness of Anthony Richardson's back turned into back spasms, turned into Anthony Richardson saying that it could be chronic and he's been dealing with it since 8th grade. That certainly got a lot of fans up in arms, maybe a little bit of an overreaction in my opinion, but I digress. But Drake is, I think where it's not, it's a true statement to say that Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson, neither one of them met expectations in 2024, and honestly, it seemed like they've regressed in some areas. So calling their future into question, if this is the right head coach and quarterback for this team, I think is completely fair.
Yeah, and based off of some answers you heard from Richardson, based off of just some things that we've heard and that colleagues of ours have heard, and peers of ours have heard, and journalists and whatnot, it just seems like when you're walking into this Week 18 game, people aren't even looking at this game. They're looking more past the game. They're looking past the game. They don't. There's people that might not even care how it ends up. I will say there's still guys playing for jobs here. There are still guys that are playing maybe for their next gig, maybe for their next destination. But yeah, man, it's a really unfortunate time for that Colts locker room, because right now all anyone is going to look at is that Week 17 loss to the Giants. I personally think even if the Colts trounce the Jaguars, people are still going to be looking at that Week 17 loss.
Yeah, and I think it's evident because, as you guys all know that have watched our show, followed us for a long time, Thursdays during the season are our preview episodes of that upcoming game. We haven't even talked about Colts Jaguars yet. We are going to talk about the game today in this episode, but we're not going to spend our normal, 50-minute time on it that Drake and I do every week, talking about and really immersing ourselves into every single detail of the game for you guys. We're basically just going to gloss over what we want to see and what we're watching for in this game and give it our prediction. That's, I think, just kind of showcases how much everyone doesn't even care about this game. And like I said on Monday, Drake, I don't think I'd be shocked to see if Lucas Oil Stadium more than half full on Sunday, just because fans are fed up and they want different answers at the leadership positions for the Indianapolis Colts, and they want to they're just done with the 2024 season. So that's why today the big topic of discussion is going to be Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen and what their future holds in Indianapolis. So we'll talk about their 2024 season, where we saw them regress, where we saw them improve. Should they be kept? And if so, what do we need to see in 2025 that will actually keep them in the building or in the Colts organization for years to come? But guys, before you do that, no, we're not live, but you still have plenty of time. Best opportunity, maybe, because you can pause the video and go follow us on all of our socials if you haven't done so already. Like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts_SI on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Make sure you click that bell, turn on the notifications so you never miss us in case we do have to jumble our schedules around. And if you can't catch us live or you're not watching us on YouTube, wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, make sure you're subscribed. Give us a 5-star review on all your podcast platforms so we can continue to reach other Colts fans just like you. So, Drake, let's dive into our topic for today about Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen, because their Colts futures are in doubt. They really are. When you look back at the 2024 season, Drake, when we were talking about this year, we're hoping to see a big jump out of Anthony Richardson in year two. We were so impressed with how Shane Steichen handled the 2023 season without Anthony Richardson, with all the different hurdles coming his way as a rookie head coach. Sure, there was a little bit of a controversy at the end of the season, with the play call, not having Jonathan Taylor in there, having Tyler Goodson. I've been on the record, I think you've been on the record as well, saying that we don't really put that on Shane Steichen. The play call was perfect. The players need to go out and execute that. He can't control that. And as we've seen throughout the 2024 season, Jonathan Taylor out there as a pass catching back, I don't know if he would have caught it either, to be honest, because Taylor's had some issues catching and holding on to the football. But I digress. But there was so much optimism coming into the 2024 season, and Drake, it just seems like at almost every turn, the head coach and the quarterback have fallen short.
Yeah, and Richardson's great performances have been against the Jets, right? Have been against the Patriots, have been against, the Titans, where you didn't even really have to throw the ball. Not saying that he didn't have a good performance, because you follow the game plan. All right, that's it. You just follow the game plan. But we've also seen Steichen take a step back this year as a play caller. We've seen Richardson almost in some ways take steps back. Still has had issues throwing interceptions. Still has fumbled the ball a lot. I mean, the guy between those two, I think he has, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe he's got 12 picks and 9 fumbles. And I mean, that is crazy. That's a lot of turning the ball over. Not saying all those were picked up by the defense, the fumbles, but just putting it on the dirt is not good. And so, like you said, it just seems like when these good teams play the Colts, there's a struggle, and there's just a struggle to get Richardson in rhythm. I know that he's young. I know that Steichen is still only in year 2, didn't get him all of last year, but just a lot of weird stuff from Shane Steichen this year. And with one game left, like I said, it's not good when your fan base, when analysts, when even reporters are like, let's not worry about the Jags. What is going on with your back? Like they're like, we don't care about Brian Thomas Jr., Mac Jones, anything going on with this game. What is going on with you at your house where you're crawling on the freaking ground? Like, what in the hell is going on between Steichen and Richardson? And then the way that they talk to the media, I'm just going to say this. Steichen almost has no clue how to talk to the media, and Richardson needs media training. He says some things where you're like, why did you say that? Why are you yelling that out loud? Like, could be a chronic issue. Yikes. That's not good to hear. We'll see. I think the next 2 weeks, Andrew, going to be interesting for the Colts. Really
They definitely are. And I keep coming back to this though, looking because I want to kind of break this up into 2 parts, looking specifically at Steichen, looking specifically at Richardson. And for Steichen, you think of you really think, you're trying to think where have been the areas that he has shown improvement in this year. And Drake, it's not a stretch to say that we really haven't seen any improvement out of Shane Steichen in any areas, because you just brought it up, starting with the PR messes, the multiple PR messes that Shane Steichen has found himself in. And listen, guys, I am on the record. I put this out on X, and I've gotten blasted for it. So be it. It's not the first time. But I've gone out there and said, honestly, it's not Shane Steichen's job to care how the fans are reacting to what he says in the media. His job is to go out there and win games. Now, granted, he hasn't won too many games this year. The Colts have a losing record, but I digress. But at some point, it does become a problem, because especially when you now put your young quarterback in the wrong light multiple times. It's not simply Bill Belichick going out there and saying we're on to the Dolphins or we're on to Cincinnati or only talking about certain things, not giving full answers. It's at the point where it's confusing messaging. I know Shane Steichen likes to be coy and likes to keep everything in house, but there are ways to do that. A lot of NFL coaches keep things in house without sending the wrong message at the same time. For multiple times this year, even when the benching, I go back to when the benching of Anthony Richardson happened, he was trying to keep that in-house, saying that Joe Flacco gave us the best chance to win right now. But I even brought this up when Anthony Richardson was benched, and Steichen said, he was asked, what does the team think about this decision? And Steichen flat out just comes out and says, I mean, I can't speak for the team. Literally, one of your jobs, I will say this, one of your jobs as a head coach, as the leader of this team, is to speak for the team and give us some insight onto what the general feel of the team is. You can't say that. And then, to have Richardson come back in and say he's taking great strides in his preparation, it doesn't seem like there wasn't really much behind that either. Or when Richardson was asked, was it explained to him why he was benched? He said that, he was still kind of up in the air as to why. I mean, that just shows that, Shane Steichen is not a very good communicator at this point as a head coach. Maybe as a person, and if that is him, maybe that's just a fatal flaw of him as a person, or maybe as him as a professional, which doesn't bode well as a head coach or being a successful head coach. You don't hear this stuff about your Andy Reids. You don't hear this about your John Harbaughs, your Sean McDermott's, your Sean McVays, your Kyle Shanahan's. The best coaches in the NFL don't have this problem, certainly. So that's a major problem. And then we get to this past week where the soreness issues, saying that Anthony Richardson was sore, and then it comes out that he actually had back spasms. And then after the game, he's like, "Yeah, I probably should have said he had spasms, tried to keep, soreness spasms." It's like, well, then you should have said it then. Okay, you can't just keep having these mess ups. Turns out how Anthony, the whole fan base online is getting on Anthony Richardson for being soft, for missing because he's sore in a must-win game. And then it comes out that he can't even freaking walk in his house on Tuesday. It's a lot worse than just soreness at that point. And that's, again, the second time in half a season, really, that Shane Steichen has put his young quarterback in a difficult position because how he has handled things in the media. And that's just off the field stuff. I'm not even talking, on the field during the game. The play calls have been called into question where he's, trusted the play call sheet more than players, when in real reality in the NFL, players win the game, not the play calls. Players have to go out there and execute the play call. He seems like he's taken a step back in time management as well, making adjustments in game planning for certain opponents. So it just, everything you look at Shane Steichen's game and what Shane Steichen has done this year, in my opinion, Drake, it's taken a step back. I can't really name one area where I've seen Shane Steichen improve, and that's very, very alarming.
Yeah, especially when you're talking look, what, you sure this is you sure this is a preview for a game?
It's really not. The title of the episode doesn't even mention the Jaguars, so that tells you anything.
Goodness. No, it's fair. It's fair. Like we said, ladies and gentlemen, no one's talking about the Jaguars game. No one's talking about, hey, this is potentially the last home game you're going to see EJ Speed play, or Ryan Kelly, or blah, 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 blah. No, people are talking about this franchise and the dysfunction, and we'll get into further dysfunction, but I will say this. Richardson's not a 29, 30-year-old vet. All right, let's just hypothetically say Kevin O'Connell communicated the way Shane Steichen did with Sam Darnold, right? That guy might be able to handle it. He came from a dysfunctional franchise called the New York Jets. He has seen it all. That guy's it's probably not even going to affect him if there's miscommunication. Richardson is 22 years old. He's going into his second season. You're already talking about, is he injury prone? Is he injury prone? Now, not only does he seem injury prone, but now you're asking, was this something you guys knew about when you were drafting him? Did he have back issues? Because the dude said he's had them since 8th grade. And I go back to it when you say, I don't know, it might be chronic. There's treatments for that. That's just the lack of awareness to say that. I mean, it's just like there's a lot of questions going on right now, and I think that I believe that Steichen and Richardson are going to be there in 2025 for sure. you got to improve the communication. I know that it might be a faux pas on Steichen's communicative abilities, but it is going to be a detriment to his success as a head coach. It's going to be a detriment to Richardson's success as a quarterback if he doesn't shore up those communication issues. Does it also lie with Ballard to an extent? I don't think that, Ballard has a part to play in, well, I can't speak for the team. I think that's Steichen, but there's a lot for him to work on. I do think his job is safe unless the one thing we do have to talk about this game, if they get routed at home against the Jaguars, we might be talking about something different. So
it might be a different story if that happens. But when you look at Richardson too, Drake, and you're looking at where is he improved at, where is he taken steps back. Obviously, I think with Richardson it's a little bit more complicated because I think people need to realize this as well, and we've talked about this more on the show. Our loyal listeners know this, that it's really hard to improve your mechanics and improve your game in season, because especially at the quarterback position, because most of your time as a quarterback during the week is game plan and preparing for your opponent. It's very, very hard to focus on your game when you're in the playbook. You're really focused on game plan, the meetings on getting the protection set up. You're watching tons of film on the opponent. So it's really difficult to see monumental strides in season. All last offseason, guys, Anthony Richardson was focusing on rehabbing his shoulder and just trying to get it so he was able to throw by OTAs and by mini camp and even into training camp, making sure he was 100% to go. That's why I think this offseason is so important for Anthony Richardson, to have a full offseason where he is just focused on improving his abilities. No rehab, focus on his mechanics, focus on again, continuing to improve his preparation week to week, focus on improving his understanding of the game, whether that's his understanding of defenses, what defenses are throwing his way, understanding the different protections that the Colts are using and when to use certain protections, and then really just again, continued improvement on himself, especially against pressure. Now, I'm not a quarterback coach, so I'm not exactly sure how you drill that. But that's got to be one of the top priorities for Anthony Richardson, on top of everything else, is being better against pressure. And if not, it's going to be hard to succeed for him to succeed in the NFL. But Drake, I think Anthony Richardson has shown more improvement, not by much, but more improvement than certainly Shane Steichen has in year two. And we've really seen it after the benching. I will say that the numbers pre-benching and post-benching, I wouldn't say they're night and day, because it's not like Anthony Richardson has all of a sudden turned into an elite quarterback, but you've seen market improvements, and it shows on the film. You see that when kept clean, his footwork is much better, his accuracy is much better. Things definitely get a lot murkier when he's under pressure, like I said. His processing is a lot better. His ability to use his legs and how he's using them, using his rushing or running ability in a smart way, trying to keep himself out of harm's way as much as possible, unless it is a go get it situation when he's trying to get into the end zone. He's really done a much better job of taking care of himself. Obviously, it doesn't seem that way with the back spasms, but it doesn't seem, I still can't find a certain play that really caused that. And if he's then having these issues, it sounds like they just flared up again. Literally hard for him to protect against that. But still, the areas that he hasn't improved in, still, like you mentioned, turns the ball over way too much.
Constantly.
Completion percentage, while I don't think Anthony Richardson is ever going to be a guy that completes 65% of his passes. I think if he's consistently completing 60% of his passes, I think that's probably his ceiling, but the accuracy on the short to intermediate throws still needs a lot of work. It really does need a lot of work, just a lot of more work consistently, because there are still times where you see Anthony Richardson go 8-9 consecutive passes without a completion. Yeah, no matter how explosive he is, on the deep ball, or no matter what he can do with his legs, That's not winning football at the quarterback position in the NFL. So the completion percentage obviously it will go up when the accuracy goes up. And again, I think that's drilling mechanics, and that's making sure the mechanics stay, the mechanics stay as I wouldn't say stay, at top level when he's under pressure, because that's kind of hard to do. And I don't think that it's just going to be a magic turnaround in 2025, but you need to see improvements in that. You need to see him be able to still deliver an accurate football when under pressure. Okay. Because that's been the biggest knock on Richardson since he came back from the benching, Drake, is you get pressure on him, and more often than not, that football's not going to get delivered to the wide receiver. So if you can see that and everything else that I just spoke about come into play, then yeah, I think you could see an improvement in Anthony Richardson in 2025, a much larger improvement that we've seen at any point in Richardson's career. But he's got to put it all together. He has to put it all together next year, and if he doesn't, then he might be on his way out.
Yeah, and that's not what you want to hear. I mean, look, at this point, what the Colts probably wanted, right, what they envisioned, is he goes out there, struggles, kind of has maybe the stat line he has this year, last year, right? Like, he goes out and just kind of struggles out there and learns from his mistakes. They wanted his sophomore season to be an upswing, or a consistent improvement. And you've seen that at times, but you've seen it against, like we said earlier, the Jets, the Patriots, the Titans. Those three teams absolutely stink. Okay. They're just not good football teams. And then, I don't think he beats the Giants. I really don't. There's been so much inconsistency this year. So yes, I think that if through this offseason, you're going into next year, and the first couple games of the season, you're still seeing these issues. Okay, you're still seeing these inconsistencies, throwing interceptions, turning the ball over. I mean, you got to think, even in that Titans game, 7 for 11 passing, still found a way to throw an interception. Okay, so one of those 4 incompletions was a pick. And so it's like Richardson has got to figure out how to not put that football in harm's way through the air with his hands, putting it on the ground. He's already great at avoiding sacks, but he's got to get better at trying to deliver that football on a frozen rope when pressure's in his face. The best in the NFL can do that more often than not. We'll see. But yes, I think that at the end of the day, you want to see consistent improvement. And we're talking 3, 4, 5 games of improvement before you see a bad game. You don't want to see, 1 good game, 2 bad games, 2 good games, 2 bad games, just this up and down thing, because that usually leads to a backup career.
Yeah, it does. And I just quickly put the numbers together. Since Anthony Richardson returned from his benching, he is 67 of 31 passing. That's still only a 51% completion percentage. He has 5 touchdowns through the air. 4 touchdowns through the air, 5 interceptions. Now he has cut back on the fumbles, Drake. He only has 3 fumbles. However, when you add that up with his rushing, since he returned as well, you're taking all of that into account. I think he has something like 5 rushing touchdowns since he returned. So altogether, again, you're probably looking at 5 rushing touchdowns. So 9 touchdowns to 5 interceptions since his benching, with 3 fumbles. So again, you're still looking at that touchdown to turnover ratio with Anthony Richardson at close to 1-to-1 altogether. It's still not, and we've heard coaches all through the years say, if you have a quarterback that has a 2-to-1 touchdown to turnover ratio, because you can't put touchdown interception ratio with Anthony Richardson, because he's much of what he does and what makes him such a unique quarterback is what he can do on the ground. So you have to do touchdown to turnover ratio. You have to include the whole picture with Anthony Richardson. Still needs to be 2-to-1. If he has 10 interceptions, or if he has 5 turnovers, he's got to have 10 touchdowns, 20 touchdowns to 10 turnovers. And really the elite of the elite, when you're looking at like a Lamar Jackson, who's out there has like 40 touchdowns and only like 3 or 4 interceptions on the season. I don't know how many fumbles, but that's when you're reaching like 2.5 to 1, close to 3 to 1 interception ratio. That's the elite of the elite. But you ultimately you can live with the 2 to 1 touchdown to turnover ratio. That's Anthony Richardson still needs to improve there and getting and holding on to the football. Now Drake, you already mentioned it. You expect Steichen and Anthony Richardson back in 2025, and I know a lot of fans are already soiled or on Steichen, ready to get him out more, and really both of them. I shouldn't just say Steichen, because there are a lot of fans online that want both of those guys gone, want Ballard gone, just want a whole fresh reset in 2025. I don't think that happens. I'm still on the train that I do think Chris Ballard should be gone, and I put him being gone at 50-50. I think Steichen and Richardson get at least one more year, and I think that's probably the smartest decision to do too, Drake. And here's why. We've seen for 8 years what Ballard can do, and I understand that there's a lot of people out there that don't like bringing in a GM and still keeping a coach and a quarterback, because then the timelines aren't set up. The GM isn't able to get his guy. And I fully understand that. But again, these guys have only been together for 2 years, and we knew it was going to take some time. I think that you give Richardson at least a third year, at least one more year with a full off season where he can focus in on improving himself, not focusing on getting over an injury and rehabbing, and then see what happens. And if Steichen and Richardson fall short, or you don't see market improvement from either one of those guys in 2025, then that new GM that you could bring in can pull the plug and hire his guys, because again, Steichen, I think you sit him down, and if you're Jim Irsay, the powers that be, that GM, and say, 2024 wasn't a good year for you, point blank. You need to sit down and really be honest with yourself and evaluate everything about how your job as a coach, from what you do throughout the week, game planning, getting your team prepared for what you do during the game, as far as play calling, time management, how your team goes out there and executes, and then how you handle the post game and handle throughout the week with the media. Every aspect of Shane Steichen's job, he needs to go back to the drawing board on, in my opinion, and really find what is still working and what truly is working. Not just, I think it is. What is truly working and what truly isn't working. That's the only way that you can do this. Anthony Richardson as well. What is working, what isn't working with his mechanics, go back to the drawing board, really improve on that, and you allow them to see what they can do in 2025. And like I said, if not, the new GM can then clean house. You can start over. Because quite frankly, I don't know really what head coaching candidates out there would be just a slam dunk much better option than Shane Steichen at this point. And when you look at the quarterback market, Drake, I mean, there is, Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, your free agents. This quarterback class that's coming through the NFL draft is putrid. So really, Anthony Richardson is your best bet. You still have him on a rookie deal. And then if you do need to clean house and start over in 2026, there's a much better incoming quarterback class in the NFL draft that you can look to. But I think that's where I stand. Give those guys one more year, but make it clear to them this is their final opportunity. Both those guys need to go back to the drawing board, reevaluate everything about their position, and we need to see market improvement in 2025. Otherwise, their futures with this team will be no longer.
Yeah, and you're going into year 3. Okay. Yes, Richardson is young, but again, you're in year 3. Okay. Steichen is also going into his 3rd year, and we won't even talk about Ballard in this case. You have to start to build some kind of winning culture in 2025. And like you said with Steichen, clearly there's miscommunication. Clearly there's players that, I don't know if we'll get into it in this episode because it is a game preview, but there's players that are very uncertain of that franchise right now. Okay. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of them are guys like Kenny Moore, who, by the way, earlier in the season said, I don't think that we're seeing all the effort we can put out there. Then you got Marlon Jackson absolutely destroying the Colts after they lost to the Giants. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and 2025 is going to be pivotal. And if they start off rough, who the hell knows what'll happen by the mid-year? Okay, so it's crucial. This is the most crucial offseason for both Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen, and heck, I might even say the Colts franchise, at least for this look right now. This Steichen and Richardson combination thing, or if Ballard stays, that whole I guess triangle. This is a crucial year for that, because if they don't do something during this offseason and show consistent improvement, I think that you might have to blow it up. You might have to start over.
Now, Drake, there is a game this weekend. We do have
Oh
to
yeah.
talk about the final game of the Indianapolis Colts season. Now, guys, we're not going to do a full-on preview. I don't think really many of you would be interested in that. But so instead, what we're really going to focus on if you are going to tune into this game, what should you be watching for? Because really, the end result does not matter for this team. Again, if the Colts do get blown out by the Jaguars, then Irsay may just blow it up. I don't assume that happens. Colts are 4.5-point favorites at home. Over under is 45. Now, they were much bigger favorites against the Giants last week, Drake. So that just shows that means absolutely nothing. But today we're going to talk about some things that we want to see out of this Colts team and what we're going to be really paying attention to in the final game of the season. Because, Drake, I think more than the win or the loss, it's really seeing improvement out of certain guys. It's seeing has the team quit on Shane Steichen? What's the effort like out there going to be this week? I think those things will kind of give us a bigger glimpse into what moves might be happening in the offseason. So we'll go back and forth here. We'll each name 3 things that we're going to be watching for. Drake, we'll start with you, bud. What is your top thing, your top theme, topic, whatever, that you are going to be watching for in this game when the Colts take on the Jaguars at Lucas Oil Stadium?
I want to see the defense playing gutsy football. I think that you have a lot to prove. Guys that are pending free agents like Julian Blackmon, right? Probably not going to be with the Colts. Okay.
No.
EJ Speed, probably not going to be with the Colts. You now have to audition for other teams. Okay. Guys like Kenny Moore, guys like DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Kwity Paye, Zaire Franklin. Those are the guys that need to go out there and play with not reckless abandon, but play like your ass is on fire. I mean, because right now, no Colts fan, by the way, you're at home for this game. No Colts fan believes in the defense. No Colts fan believes in maybe even one singular player outside of DeForest Buckner on that defense. And is that justified? Probably not, because there's some guys that have played really hard, right? But when you let up 45 points to Drew Lock, your fans expect something like a response. So I'm looking at that defense like you guys have got to play some great football against a bad team that is reeling. They're just trying to get to the offseason as well. The Jaguars are, and they have Mac Jones. I mean, that Evan Ingram's fallen off a cliff. The only guy that's doing anything is Brian Thomas Jr., by the way, a rookie. So, I mean, if you don't go out there and make a statement defensively against the Jaguars, and God forbid if you lose again like a 45-33 or let up 40 plus points, maybe even 35 plus points, oh man, I mean that will just I think Gus Bradley's coffin might have that last nail in it, or had it last week. But I think that he also needs to go out there and show that to the rest of the NFL that he can still get the job done, because I don't know how many people believe in his scheme right now.
Yeah, the Jaguars offense is pretty abysmal. I mean, obviously Trevor Lawrence is done for the year. Evan Ingram is done for the year. Christian Kirk is done for the year. All of those guys with brutal injuries this season. And so it is, Brian Thomas Jr. trying to carry the load. They still have Travis Etienne, obviously Tank Bigsby. But the Colts, again, on paper, this Colts defense should be better than this Jaguars offense that's coming to town this weekend. For me, Drake, and mine is really contingent on if this guy even plays, because again, he's dealing with back spasms that seem pretty bad. But I want to see Anthony Richardson end on a high note. The Jaguars defense, not very good. They haven't been really good all season. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I'll bring them up here as I'm talking. But this is a defense that has not been very good all season long. They're 31st in the NFL in total yards allowed per game, dead last in the NFL in passing yards allowed per game. Now, against the run, they're much better. I think they are doing quick math here, about 22nd or 23rd in the NFL against the run, about with 129.8 yards allowed per game. And then in terms of points allowed per game, Drake, they're right there with the Colts. I think they rank 28th in the NFL in points allowed. The Colts are 27th in the NFL in points allowed a game. So this is not a very good defense that Anthony Richardson, if he plays, is going up against. And it's time to show it. If you're going up against a poor defense, you should have a good performance. If you want to be the franchise quarterback for this team, you can't play down to the competition like we've seen over and over and over again this season. I'm not expecting, again, Anthony Richardson to go out there and have a 70% completion percentage game, but you want to go out there and you want to see him protect the football. You want to see strides and accuracy. You want to see him be smart with his decision making. And I want to see at least a couple of touchdowns, 2 or 3 touchdowns out of Anthony Richardson and no turnovers. Build some momentum. It's not going to be much momentum because of how this season has ended. You're not exactly playing a powerhouse team, but you can feel confident. At least I ended the season with a really good game. Build off of that in the offseason. So, of course, my eyes are going to be on Anthony Richardson if he is out there. And again, that's a big if. We'll see if Richardson does practice today. Colts held a walkthrough on Wednesday, but he was listed as an estimate of a DNP. So if he's out there, we'll see if he's out there today or if the back spasms are still too bad that he's not able to practice. But if he is out there, Drake, really on offense, my eyes are going to be locked on number 5 to see what he can do in this final game of the season.
Yeah, and it's going to be all, like you said, it's going to be all about just taking what if you're Richardson, you gotta try to build in the last game of the year. It'll take your momentum at least into the off season, right? Like it's not much, like you said, but it's something. I think that for me, the second thing that I'm looking for is I want to see, he's been a pleasant surprise and he's really shined. I know that Josh Downs has been great this season, but Alec Pierce, I want to see more Alec Pierce in this game. I think the first time that they played the Jaguars, they did have Joe Flacco, didn't get targeted until the very end of the game, but he got thrown 3 different footballs, caught them all, had like 144 receiving yards, had a touchdown. Did the same thing last week against the Giants. He just consistently is showing that he is maybe the most deadly receiver right now until Pittman comes back from that similar to Richardson back issue, which you've seen what happens when someone tries to play through a back issue with Pittman. But I want to see Alec Pierce finish strong. I really like what he's been able to do this season. You start your career with 2 rough seasons, right? You don't live up to, I guess, that second round draft selection in those first 2 seasons. And then what do? They go get this pass catcher from Texas named A.D. Mitchell. Okay. And they say, hey, go push him. And we were raving about Mitchell. And we hadn't written off Pierce, but we did say, Alec Pierce is going to have a pivotal year where he's going to need to do something or else he's going to start to fall back in that receiving line. And all he did was answer the call. That's all he did. All he did was go out there and show out, continued blocking, but he did better with his route running. He became a volume receiver last week, which we don't talk about him doing. So I really want to see him finish strong. I'm really happy for Pierce. I'm excited for his future with the Indianapolis Colts, regardless of what happens with the head coach or the quarterback. I think you've got yourself a receiver there. I really do. I'd love to see him get targeted earlier in this game and potentially have, just an absolutely fantastic performance to finish up.
Hell, when the season started, we were talking about A.D. Mitchell potentially replacing Alec Pierce as a starter by midseason. If anything, Alec Pierce has widened that gap by a considerable margin this season. Alec Pierce has had a really good year. Like you mentioned in that game earlier, it was with Joe Flacco at quarterback, but 3 catches for 134 yards and a touchdown against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's proven to be one of the best deep threats in the NFL this season, Drake. And I don't see that slowing down. And there's been multiple opportunities where I think he could have even done a better job, because he's had some catches that you'd like for him to pull in. And I think that's the next step. That contested catchability, while he still does it very well, I think he can take another step in that this offseason. And if so, I mean, Drake, there's an argument that Alec Pierce is one of the better deep threats in the NFL, not just a solidify himself as a deep threat, but one of the best deep threats in the NFL. I think he still leads the entire league in yards per catch, which is it's an insane number. When you're looking at the regular season numbers for Alec Pierce this season, 21.9 average yards per catch, 35 catches for 767 yards, 6 touchdowns, easily a career year for Alec Pierce. Drake, I'm going to switch to the defensive side of the ball for a guy that I'm going to watch, Laiatu Latu. We had really high expectations for Laiatu Latu coming into this year. I think we're both on the record saying that he had a good chance of hitting double-digit sacks. Obviously, that hasn't been the case. He only has 4 sacks this season, but he has shown a considerable amount of pressure. I think he's second on the team in terms of pressures forced. I think Dio Odangbo leads in terms of pressures forced, but Laiatu Latu is a very close second, and that's with Latu playing, I think it's close to 70 less pass rushing snaps than Dio Odangbo this year, which has been something that's also really confused me. You take this guy 15th overall, you're hoping that you've gone on record, in fact, saying he's the best defensive player in the draft, the best pass rusher in the draft, and you only use him in pass rushing situations. You don't use him as an every down defensive end, first round pick. And some points you're using other guys more than him. That just doesn't make sense to me. And that's something that I think has been a massive mistake by this defensive staff, is how they've used Laiatu Latu and his ability to get pressure, and only putting him out there in for at least the first half of the season in obvious pass rushing situations. Because when you look at it, Drake, I mean, it's not like he is a much better or a much worse run defender than some of the guys out there. In fact, he's a better run defender than Dio Odangbo, who's out there a lot of times during those rushing, those early down expected run play situations. So that's what I want to see. I want to see Laiatu Latu end the season strong as well. I want to see Latu get out there, get another sack, get plenty of pressures, and really make life hell for Mac Jones. I'd love to see Charlie Partridge and Gus Bradley use him more. I'd love to see Laiatu Latu out there for just as many snaps as a Kwity Paye, a Dio Odangbo, because let's face it, when you take this guy in the first round, you took him to be your pass rusher for the future. He needs to be out there getting as many snaps as possible, and he needs to be playing starter snaps, and that needs to start now. It's been one of the biggest qualms with this defensive staff all season long, that Latu's not out there as much, and I think that's hindered him and hindered his production this year as well. So I'm really hoping for a big game from Laiatu Latu. I still have a lot of faith in him, just because the tape is fantastic whenever Latu is out there. He's constantly getting chipped. So, other teams are respecting Latu's ability to go out there and wreck a game. He just needs more opportunities to do that. And he's getting close. Again, I still have a lot of faith in him, but I'd love to see Latu end the 2024 season with a bang. Again, create that momentum heading into the offseason, where a lot of times pass rushers take that jump from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, I mean, Laiatu Latu has, like you said, he's shown glimpses where you're like, wow, there is really something there. There's really something special. He comes off the ball really well. He's got, we've talked about this over and over again, he's got incredible torque and bend with his body that makes him really difficult for taller defensive or offensive tackles, especially, and rangier guys. He can get, he can really take advantage of, his elusiveness, and he's got a lot of skill. So that's what I'm hoping too, is like, hey, if you can go out there and finish with a sack and a half or 2 sacks, I mean, that's pretty good for Laiatu Latu. I think the last one for me, this is a really interesting one, is the whole the whole team. Actually, you know what? I'll narrow it in, because I feel like we've talked about the defense, we talked about Richardson. I'm looking at Matt Gay, actually. Like, and I put this in my keys piece this morning. If he gets called upon to kick another 50-yard field goal, he's got to make it, right? Here's something that will blow the minds of people. This guy has actually, by his numbers, he's been pretty good if you just look at them from the top. So I'm going to pull them up right here. So basically, Matt Gay is 27 for 32 in his field goals this season, and he's actually perfect on his extra points. He is, 31 of 31 extra points. He's 27 of 32 field goal attempts. So from 20 to 29, he's 9 out of 9. From 30 to 39, he's 10 out of 10. From 40 to 49, he's 5 out of 5. He's perfect. From 50 plus, 3 for 8.
Mm-hmm.
There is a clear problem. There's a clear problem with that man kicking deep field goals. I don't know if it's an injury, because this team has clearly shown that they do not communicate every injury clearly. I don't know if it's just something that he can't block out mentally, but you paid this man a lot of money to make those kicks. Not saying that missed kick against the Giants would have done anything different, but you have to talk about what happened in that moment of the game. And maybe it changes something. Maybe it changes the approach the Colts had or the Giants had. But there's a clear problem with Matt Gay's long field goal attempts, and he's just not very consistent. He's under 50%, almost around 33%, actually. So I'm looking for that. If he's called upon, he's got to sink it. He's got to make it. I think that if he misses a 50-yarder or misses any field goals in this game, there's Colts fans that have been clamoring for that have been complaining about his contract since he got signed. So
yeah, and it definitely seems like it's something mental where he's just not executing outside of 50 yards. It's almost like he knows it's outside of 50 yards and it's in his head, and he's trying to he's either thinking about it too much or he's trying to overcorrect at times, and it hasn't been good for Matt Gay. If I think if it was something injury related, Drake, it wouldn't just be as soon as it's past 50 yards. And it's not like Matt Gay's having trouble getting the football there. He has a huge leg. It's got to be internal. It's got to be in his head. It's got to be something with his mechanics when he's trying to do something past 50 yards and it's not working. So probably something that Matt Gay is going to have to, again, go back to the drawing board in the offseason and really lock in to figure out what's happening there and why he can't, because he could be out of a job. Because when you see other kickers around the NFL hitting kicks from 50 plus, and it's almost automatic. And to have the contract that he has, he needs to be in that upper echelon as well. But Drake, the final thing that I'm going to be watching for, I kind of alluded to this earlier, it's just effort. It's effort. I want to see, it's the final game of the season. Colts have nothing to play for. Whether the coaches and players came out and said the effort wasn't there last weekend against the Giants, it definitely looked like something was off. It looked like the team had given up at times, certainly on defense, not so much on offense, but you want to see both offense and defense giving it their all. You don't want to see guys already mailing it in, thinking about their vacation, because again, that would just speak to the culture, the terrible culture that we've called out for this team currently. You need to see all phases going out there, playing hard, playing fast, doing whatever they can to end this season with a win. I think that would speak volumes to Shane Steichen's standing with the team. If the team goes out there, lays another egg, don't look like they're playing hard, doesn't look like they really care what's going on, I think that's just as big of an indictment on Steichen than anything else. Then my answer of should he be back in 2025 may change, because at that point it seems like the locker room is officially lost and you're probably not coming back from that. But if this team goes out there, plays hard, really tries to execute, and you can obviously tell that they're flying around giving it their all in a meaningless game for pride, for their coach, for their teammates, then that's what you want to see. And then I think you can take solace into, well, things aren't perfect and changes need to be made. It's like, okay, this team hasn't given up. At least they're still playing for each other, still playing for the head coach. And I think that could be a very small stepping stone to build off of in the 2025 season. So Colts, we'll do a quick prediction here. Colts are 4.5-point favorites over the Jags. Drake, what do you think is going to happen? Do the Colts end the season with a victory and get to that 8-9 record, or do we see another collapse to one of the terrible teams in the NFL, which just causes the fan base to grow louder, calling for the heads of Ballard, Steichen, Bradley, and really to blow up the entire organization?
Yeah, I think that, you want to say that the players on this team are talented enough to defeat a squad that's kind of mailing it in. I'm not saying that the Jags are mailing it in, because I do think that, people forget these, yes, the millions of dollars that they're getting paid, but these are still jobs. Okay. These are still jobs these guys have to play for. And so I think that prediction is really difficult. It should be easy. I'm going to go ahead and say I think they drop this one. I hate to say it. I really, really do. I can't believe I just had to say that, because there's just something wrong. There's something wrong with the team. There's players that aren't happy. And I would assume that some of those players have been with the team for a while, because you don't just, you can grow happy quickly. We've all had jobs where you start it and right away you're like, oh, this might not be it. But usually, you got to let it kind of digest for a while, and then you move on, and then you find that new job. Well, some of these Colts players have been with this organization for years, and it really hasn't changed much. I think the only change that's happened is coaches and coordinators and quarterbacks and just constant switches of the roster in certain spots. So I think that they're going to drop this one. I think it's going to be 27-24. And I don't think it matters if Flacco starts. I don't think it matters if Richardson starts, because when you have a culture issue, man, it leaks. And I don't really know how many Colts fans are going to be there to support them, sadly.
Yeah, and I could see that happening. I really could. I am going to go the other way, though. I do think the Colts get the victory. I don't think it could be much worse than what it was last week against the New York Giants. I do think the defense will rebound a little bit. I'm going to go 28-23 Colts. I do think that it wouldn't surprise me, though, to see 28-14, 28-10, and then we see the Jaguars make a comeback just like the Titans did. But I do think the Colts will ultimately hold on. So I'm going to go 28-23. Again, I don't think it matters too much whether Richardson's in there or Flacco's in there. I think you're going to see another big game out of Jonathan Taylor. I think potentially you could see another big game out of Alec Pierce. But again, I want to see Anthony Richardson take care of the football, and I want to see Anthony Richardson run well with the football, throw it confidently, and just end the season on a high note. I want to see Leatu Latu get after Mac Jones, and I want to see this team playing at a very high level, high level effort wise, I should say. So I'm gonna go Colts 28-23. They end it with a win, 8-9 record, and then that's when things get interesting. Is Monday morning. Do we see any firings for the Indianapolis Colts on Monday? How quickly are changes going to be made? Because changes have to be made. And I think that's when you're going to start to see the dominoes fall is next week. It's going to be a pretty big week inside the Colts organization. So Drake, before we get out of here, let's talk about the latest Colts news and rumors. Just some news to maybe end the show on a high note. I guess if you view this as a high note, or if you view this as maybe these guys aren't deserving, either way, it's honors for these guys. The Colts, it was announced today actually that the Colts have 3 Pro Bowlers on the roster. So 3 players from the 2024 team have made the Pro Bowl. Quentin Nelson I think that one was kind of obvious. Quentin has been playing at a fantastic level all season. Quentin Nelson making his 7th Pro Bowl appearance for the Indianapolis Colts. He's there every single year. Jonathan Taylor is back in the Pro Bowl. And I think, again, especially what he's been able to do, missed some time on the injury report, but is still one of the top leading rushers in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor going to his 2nd Pro Bowl. And then Zaire Franklin leading the NFL in tackles by over 10 tackles. Definitely been an up and down season, a rough season, I would say, for Zaire Franklin at times, but he is going to his first Pro Bowl. So, Drake, I'll be honest, I didn't know if any Colts were going to make the Pro Bowl this season. I think maybe the only guy that really had a chance was Quentin Nelson. But as you can see, it does seem like the Colts got a little bit more love, maybe from coaches and other players and those in the NFL than the fan voting, certainly. But Quentin well-deserved, Jonathan Taylor well-deserved, and I'm happy for Zaire Franklin that he's able to make his first Pro Bowl, finally getting some recognition.
Yeah, and these were all 3 respectable seasons up to this point, especially Zaire. He added some sacks, added some turnovers. We had talked about, hey, he's not getting enough turnovers. Well, he had 2 interceptions, I think 4 fumbles forced. Leads the league in tackles again. I mean, he's a machine. What you're hoping, though, is that he can shore up some of the missed tackles that he did have during the season, because sometimes he was whiffing at air. But I do think that these 3 guys are deserving, especially Quentin Nelson. But yeah, I did want to say real quick for Jonathan Taylor, I know that he isn't really that impressive of a receiving back. He's kind of a one-way, operator on offense. But my goodness, man, with a team that has had old man Flacco and Richardson, having his up and down season and at times looking okay, and then Steichen sometimes just having a really weird game. I mean, Taylor has been the constant on offense. He really has. He's been the guy that they just hand it off to whenever they can. And that's been great. Now, it hasn't really resulted in wins, because look at last week's performance. The guy absolutely tore it up. They still can't win. They scored 33 points. You still can't win. So I'm happy for all 3 of these guys. I also think there might have been an argument for DeForest Buckner. And there's probably some other arguments for other guys, but hey, like you said, I was kind of surprised when anyone got a Pro Bowl nomination for the Colts, honestly.
Right. And going back to Jonathan Taylor real quick, Drake, Jonathan Taylor actually is 7th in the NFL in rushing yards this season with 1,254, and that's with missing 3 games this season as well. Because when you look at the top 6, the guys above him, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs, and Jahmyr Gibbs, every single one of those guys has played all 16 games this season. Jonathan Taylor is missed 3 games and still in the top 10 in rushing. When you look at rushing yards per game, Jonathan Taylor is actually 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards per game, behind Barkley and Henry. So a healthy Jonathan Taylor all season, he's still top 5, top 3 in rushing yards per game, and he's probably closing in on a 1,500, 1,600 yard rushing campaign for Jonathan Taylor. And then when you look at the touchdowns, Taylor has 10 touchdowns, despite Anthony Richardson having 6 touchdowns on the season. So having that rushing quarterback can take that away. That's kind of like the same thing with Barkley and Henry. Both those guys, Barkley's got 13 TDs, Henry with 14. But when you look at guys like, Jalen Hurts getting all those touchdowns, Jalen Hurts has 14 rushing touchdowns. So imagine what Saquon's numbers could be if they weren't doing the tush push all the time. And then Lamar certainly cuts into the touchdowns for Derrick Henry. Lamar has 4 touchdowns on the year, so not as many, but still. So Jonathan Taylor deserving of a Pro Bowl. And then you mentioned DeForest Buckner. Buckner's a Pro Bowl alternate. Buckner probably gets into the Pro Bowl if he's healthy all season. That high ankle sprain really, took some games away from him, and I think Buckner has been playing at a Pro Bowl level. But DeForest Buckner, Ryan Kelly are the 2 Pro Bowl alternates for the Colts. So if whichever it is, if they say the Chiefs make the Super Bowl and Chris Jones can't go in, we might see DeForest Buckner as an alternate. We'll kind of just have to wait and see what happens. So Buckner still has a chance to make a Pro Bowl, and Drake, I always think DeForest Buckner is worthy of a Pro Bowl appearance.
Well, I mean, he's been one of the stalwarts for the Colts. He was one of the he's probably the biggest success that Chris Ballard has had as a manager. So
Mhm.
you talk about a guy that is always going to bring it. He's always going to play through the pain. Nothing will stop him from thinking positive. No one's more headstrong than DeForest Buckner. Which I do have to say one thing. Last week, I've never seen that man look so distressed in a football game. I mean, he looked like he could not make a play. So I'm really looking for DeForest Buckner on the field because that's a guy that will play football, especially after he has a bad performance.
Yeah, there's no question that Buck is going to put all of his effort out there on Sunday. But Drake, one more to go in the 2024 season. Colts Jaguars on Sunday. The winner really doesn't matter. We talked about what we want to look for, but really the futures of Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen, that's going to be huge topics of discussion pretty much all off season long. Like we both said, we think they get another year in 2025, but 2025 is going to be make or break for both of those guys. No matter if Chris Ballard is back, no matter if a new GM is back, we need to see vast improvement out of both head coach and quarterback next season if they want to be with this team in 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, and hey, you know what? It's only one game. It's basically meaningless. But again, there's jobs to play for, there's pride to play for, and there's momentum. Because if you can have a good game, you can take that win into the offseason. That's a whole hell of a lot better than taking a bad loss or just a loss into an unsure offseason where, I hate to say it, and Andrew can agree with me, there's going to be change, whether it's front office, whether it's coach, whether it's player. On all three of those levels, don't be surprised if there's change.
Has to be. So that's our show for today, guys. Really appreciate everyone tuning in tonight to see Drake and I's thoughts, or hear Drake and I's thoughts really on Richardson and Steichen and what we can expect this weekend against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Be sure to follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts _SI on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Make sure you click that bell, turn on the notifications so you never miss us. And if you can't catch us live, wherever you're listening to us, be sure to subscribe. Give us a 5-star review as well so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. Drake, tell the people what you've got out there on horseshoehuddle.com leading up to this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, so I talk about the Pro Bowl nominees, also talked about the 5 keys to the game. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of content. I also am probably going to be releasing something over the weekend on players that might be playing their last game in a Colts uniform.
Yeah, definitely check those out. For myself, been doing a lot of thinking about the state of this franchise and really how to fix the franchise of the Indianapolis Colts. So I haven't got that piece out. That's going to come out on Monday morning after the final whistle for the Colts this season. Really going to do a long, deep dive into all the different aspects that are in question heading into this offseason and what I think the Indianapolis Colts should do to try to fix their incredibly broken franchise. So make sure to check all that out as well as everything else on horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. And guys, we'll be back on Monday night to break down Colts Jaguars and discuss what's next for the Indianapolis Colts. Who knows? Maybe we won't break down the game if there's a firing that happens on Black Monday. Maybe that is going to grab the headlines, and that's what we're going to be discussing all evening long. But whatever we're talking about, be sure to be back here on Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, so we can talk more Colts football with all of you.